Hey guys, what's up? It's Kev for the win, and we're back for another edition of Charlie the Legend. I've been asked this question quite a bit in regards to this game. It comes up often in the comment section, so I think I should just address all the questions I've been asked here in this video and just kind of get it out of the way. So, a lot of people have been asking, why can't they find Charlie the Legend on the Steam store anymore? What happened with the game? Is the game still being supported? So, let's just answer the first question. Why is Charlie the Legend off of Steam? Well, the first and foremost thing you need to know is that Charlie the Legend is, in fact, officially dead. The game has been pulled from the Steam store by the developer. This means that if you're trying to re-download it, apparently as a free-to-play player, you will not have access to the game. The game just doesn't exist in the Steam store for download. Subsequently, for those of you who do have the $20 version of it that actually bought the base game, to my knowledge, there is still a way for you to be able to download it from the Steam store. However, if you haven't deleted it from your Steam library, my suggestion would be to save it just in case, best case scenario. Now, why did it get pulled from the Steam store? Well, the developer, for all intents and purposes, has abandoned this game, and there's a lot of reasons that have been uncovered over the last couple of weeks and even the last couple of months as to the status of this game. Now, most people know Charlie the Legend was a game that was funded via Indiegogo. It didn't reach its actual goal of how much money it wanted to make, which I think was somewhere in the $60,000 range. Instead, got about roughly $10,000 to $11,000. Now, the developer originally said that this all was going to be used to put money back into the game and get the development on track and everything of the sort. There's a Discord, which is now basically the unofficial Charlie the Legend Discord, in which a bunch of data miners, as well as a couple of people that were just digging around, discovered that about 95% of everything that you see in this game is actually an asset. Now, for those of you who don't know what an asset is, it just basically means you can buy the models, props that you see in the game, even some of the stage, and just kind of put it into your game and take a little bit of tweaks here and there, but mostly these are all bought assets to be used in the game. So it's like no different than if you buy royalty-free, royalty music or a graphic, and you pay to put it in there. So basically what the dev did was spend about somewhere around $1,000 after we were tallying it all up, and basically put $1,000 worth of assets into this game, and then nobody really knows what happened with our $9,000. Clearly, that $9,000 didn't go to dedicated servers. Clearly, the $9,000 didn't go to trying to promote this game. Clearly, the $9,000 didn't go to trying to tweak the game. On top of that, the game is actually made with the stack system, so it's not even being developed with C++. So it's basically very easy for just about anybody with a little bit of knowledge of programming to be able to make this type of game where you're just dropping assets and everything of the sort. For all we know, Charlie the Legend himself could be an actual asset. We don't know if he paid to make the model or anything of the sort. But the point of what I'm trying to get at is that the developer pretty much pocketed about $9,000 worth of money and never went back into the game whatsoever. So when people started to notice a problem a couple of months back, in fact, I made a video as to why there was just not being any support for the game. The last update to this game was a patch update for the single player campaign that the dev decided to push out. That's what you're seeing me play right now, because there is nobody really to play online with this game. Single player is very broken. The AI bots don't behave properly. Case in point, here you see somebody just standing stuck in the door and not moving around. When you're playing in the survivor mode, it's a little bit different because Charlie's actually very active and moves around and everything sort. But there was no work put into actually the Charlie mode and tweaking the survivor's AI and everything sort. In fact, I had talked about this with the developer, and the developer said he was going to fix it, and obviously, like with many promises, didn't go through with that. Now, on top of that, because it was pulled from the Steam store, that means what happens with anybody who had the console version of this game? Well, I hate to break it to you, but he basically took your money and ran with it. You're not going to get a console version of Charlie the Legend. It's just not going to happen at this point. This is kind of one of these cases where the developer took the money and ran. We found out as we were continuing to uncover many things about the developer that apparently they had allegedly a gambling addiction. They allegedly invested money into NFTs, so probably all the money that was donated to this particular game went to those type of things. Now, some people tried to ask him what was going on with the game a while back, and he used a excuse that he was talking to his therapist, and for his mental health, he needed to separate himself completely from the game. Now, that's fine and all. I'm not going to make a dig on anybody with mental health, because mental health is obviously a very serious issue. That's not something to make fun of. However, as we continue to uncover things, we found out that the developer pretty much was lying in regards to that as well, and was just trying to pursue now selling NFTs, graphics, and on top of that, his apparent music career that he's trying to take off as a DJ. So it's really hard to know exactly what was going on with the dev. We don't know if he just pocketed this money for gambling, really, with NFTs. We don't know if he was pocketing this money for his, what I'm going to assume is probably going to be an ill-fated music career as well, because if he can't commit to a game of this nature, I doubt he'd be able to commit to, honestly, a music career. Or it seems like a guy that starts projects and then just doesn't finish it. And it's unfortunate because Charlie the Legend, even though, yes, it is pretty much like a Chucky ripoff and everything, or it had potential to be good. Now, why did this game never really take off is the question that a lot of people have also asked me on the channel. It was very simple. A good friend of mine by the name of Jay, and ironically, we weren't actually friends in the beginning. We were actually on opposite sides as I was trying to defend this game a little bit. I thought that Jay was being a little too critical. Made a very critical game about video about this game, saying that it was not really well refined and everything of the sort. And because of that, the developer got his feelings hurt, there's no other way to put it, and decided to content strike Jay's video unfairly, and then began to send him threatening messages when they were trying to basically resolve this issue behind closed doors. So obviously Jay, being the type of person that he is, and I do respect the fact that he did this, made all this information public. And when he did, obviously that hurt the reputation of a game that wasn't really having any promotion, because it shows that the dev didn't have really thick skin and couldn't handle fair criticism of the game. And as you can see, the gameplay here, the game is pretty much a mess. There's no other way to put it. You know, I like what it is for what it is, but this is not very functioning and workable, and there's a lot of balancing issues. So, because of the negative reputation that it got, the dev was never able to turn it around. Dev never actually bothered to do promotions. On top of that, the dev, when their Discord was still around before he deleted it, decided that he was going to say that American content creators weren't the only people that really would play this game and that they weren't important. And little do we see that without American content creators supporting your game, which is a big chunk of what most people watch on Twitch and YouTube and everything short, it pretty much failed. He burned bridges with just about everybody, all content creators, and got himself blacklisted. And then when people were critical about the game, what he would do is he would censor everybody that even had any sort of thing to say, block people on Twitter, everything of the sort. He did horrible damage control for his own failure, and because of that, the game failed tremendously, to the point that there was only about maybe 30 people playing. Now, what does this mean for the future Charlie Legend? Charlie Legend, the game, for all intents and purposes, is dead. However, there is a group of dedicated people who have been interested in trying to mod this game. They believe that there's still potential for this game if somebody can actually fix it and mod it, very similar to what you're seeing with basically Friday the 13th, the game Camp Blood. Now, whether this modding situation actually comes to light or not, I don't know. There's only about maybe one person working on it, and they're very, very busy with other things trying to grasp their brain as to how they can kind of tweak this. So, the future for this game is to be determined. It might live on in the modding community because the dev just completely abandoned it. I doubt this game will ever return to the Steam store because it is an epic failure. I don't know how you would be able to get your hands on the free-to-play version of this game. The servers are still alive because it is a peer-to-peer connection game, meaning just like Smash servers and everything, as long as you have people who have the game that you can play with, it's a peer-to-peer connection, so, you know, there's no dedicated servers that'll shut down. It's very similar to what happened with Friday the 13th, the game, now that it's no longer being supported. The issue, though, is obviously you can't get the game anymore, and you can't obviously play it offline unless you have the paid version. And for those of you who have the game installed, it's questionable whether or not you should honestly uninstall it, because if you had some of the event items and everything, sorry, we don't even know if that carries over. I spoke with somebody who had event items. In fact, one of the event skins for Halloween, that was the person actually made it, South, that had tried to install the game recently, didn't have any of his cosmetics. On top of that, there's people who actually were really large backers of this game who do not actually have their character model in the game and everything of the sort. There were a lot of promises and a lot of situations in which the dev, which I'm not going to name by name, but obviously it was Fireblitz Games, which is no longer around either, keep in mind, promised things to people in exchange for money and never made good on it. So it's one of these unfortunate situations. I kind of was very hesitant about it. That's why I really, when it came to actually purchasing this game, I was very, like, on the fence, because even with offline mode, I kind of knew once offline mode was going to come for this game that kind of meant that the dev was getting ready to abandon it, just because there's no playability, there's nobody really playing it online. And it's kind of unfortunate, because this is a situation where if the dev had given it a chance, had the dev promoted this properly, had the dev invested the money that he actually took from everybody and put back in it, this is something that people may have gotten behind. This is something where over time, with a lot of patches and a lot of love and a lot of reworking, it could have probably gotten pretty fun and been well received, kind of like how glitchy and messy Friday the 13th is, but it's still fun to play. Unfortunately, that was not the case to be for Charlie the Legend, and it will go down pretty much in terms of asymmetrical horror games as a gigantic failure. Which is not going to put it. It's a failure. That is going to be the legacy of Fire Blitz games and Charlie the Legend, that it's just, this is what the final version of the game looks like. For me, I mean, it's nice to know that I have an incredibly rare horror game, but at the same time, as you can see, offline is not going to be very playable. I'm going to be able to level up and get stuff that's available in cosmetics, but I have to hope that, like many other people who are hoping, that this game can be modded and maybe live on for the mod community. Or only time's really going to tell in that retrospect. Now, you know, if I had access to the game and I had the programming scope, there's a lot of things that could easily be fixed here, right? Obviously, offline mode bots AI needs to be tweaked so that survivors, when you're playing in Charlie offline, don't get stuck behind doors and actually move and continue to do their objectives. On the survivor side of offline mode, obviously, I think Charlie's abilities need to kind of be a little bit scaled, his difficulty, because he can curb stomp through survivors very easily, and it's very rarely that you will win a game as a survivor, even in offline mode with Charlie the Legend. There's other things that could have been done with this game. For example, I feel like if it had sort of a more cosmetic rewards to earn, there's only two really in the game that are important. That being Melted Charlie, which I think you get at level 100. No, correction. Melted Charlie, I think, is a backer reward, but there's two Charlies that you could get. You could get a pretty much Melted Charlie skin. Yeah, no, it is actually one of the game. So there's a Melted Charlie skin that you get. That is at level 25 or 50, if I remember correctly. Then there is a good guy version where it's just Charlie not looking menacing, or looking very similar to a good guy doll for all intents and purposes without copyright strike. That's available at level 100. The problem is that you have to grind a whole bunch offline to be anything with it, and it becomes a question of worth it. So to answer the question, Charlie Legends, then you cannot download it unless you have the game already. That's going to do it for me in today's video. As always, a like is greatly appreciated. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, definitely consider doing so, and I'll try to answer any other questions you have in regards to Charlie the Legend in the comment section.